Erin Yufeng stood on the hillside of the village, and the wind shaved her face and brought a smell of soil and grass. She looked down at the familiar and unfamiliar land under her feet, and her heart seemed to be blocked by something, unable to breathe. The protection zone of the village was shattered in an incredible way. The magic barrier that was originally flashing with a tiny blue light now only has a few shady lights left, flying in the air like a dying fire snail. The villagers were still busy cleaning up the slaughter, some cursed and some cried, but more so, they were silent. All of this is her fault. 3 days ago, Erin just wanted to try her new sing of the mantra. It was a simple style mantra copied from the old witch, stolen by the old witch in the village. It was just a small wind and helping you blow dry the clothes hanging in the yard. But as soon as she opened her mouth, her voice was like a wild horse that was out of control. It seemed like a fire was ignited in her voice, and the sounds of the mantra popped out one after another, spreading together, turning into a strange and singular voice. Then, the wind came, not the little wind, but the crazy wind like a knife, tearing the boundaries around the village, and even several old houses were overturned. "Irene, what did you fuck this girl?" The village chief was so angry that his face was purple. He pointed at her with a crutch, his voice trembling. "This world is our last line of defense. Without it, wild animals, fowls, and even those silence cracks that should die can come in at will. Do you want to kill us all?" Erin wanted to explain, but she swallowed it back until her mouth was around. What can she say? I don't know why this is the case. Say she just wants to help. She looked down at her hands, and her palms still had the burning feeling of singing, as if she was mocking her incompetence. She knew that the villagers had long pointed at her, saying that she was a freak, saying that her voice was not right, and saying that she was born not to touch magic. But this time, she really made a big fuss. "Don't stay here anymore." The village chief finally said this coldly and turned around. "You don't belong to this place, go find a place that can control you." Hearing that there is a magician guild on the Tower of Spells, they may be able to cure your problem. The Tower of Spells. Erin heard this name, which is the center of the notes, and it is the holy land of all the magicians. Those who can enter the Magicians Guild are all tops among the tops. They can directly share the song with the core of the music and sing the mantra that changes the world. But she? The town girl who could not control the simplest mantra, went to that place, probably couldn't even touch her door. However, she no longer chose it. Although the villagers didn't take her away explicitly, those eyes and those private words were harder than just urging her. So she packed up some dry food and a few torn clothes, brought the stolen curse book, and quietly left the village before it was dawn. The road was even harder than she thought. The wilderness of the mainland of Fuyin has never been a safe place, especially in recent years. Quiet cracks have begun to emerge. Those rifts are like black wounds, tearing open the ground, swallowing sounds and magic, making it impossible for people to sing a complete spell. Erin heard that a magician accidentally entered the rift, and it turned out to be a BA, and no sound could be made again. She didn't want to be like that, so she walked along the way and picked some paths that looked safe. After walking for about 10 days, she finally saw the tower that was hiking in the clouds on the horizon far away. The Tower of the Sage was more convincing than she thought. The entire tower seemed to be made of some obsidian, with complex runes engraved on the surface. A circle of light golden light radiated at the top of the tower, like something alive, breathing. There was a huge building around the tower, and many people had gathered, including magicians wearing long robes, and young people like her, who should have come to participate in the trial. Erin heard that the Magician Guild would have an ultimate trial every 10 years, and those who passed by could become formal members, be protected by the guild, and learn the secrets of those taboo spells. No one knew the content of the trial, but it was said that 9 out of 10 people who entered the tower were unavailable. Thinking of this, she felt a little scared, but her steps still didn't stop. She had to try it, otherwise this person would have to hide in the corner and live in a corner with the name of monster. There are more and more people on the market, and there is a tight and exciting atmosphere in the air. Erin found a corner and sat down, took out the dry rice and chewed it a few times, then looked at the people around her. Away from her, there was a young man wearing a long robe with meticulous hair combed, holding a beautifully carved staff in his hand, and was slapped at the crowd with a high look. Erin guessed that this guy was probably from a big magic family, and it was for gold. She didn't like this kind of person, so she turned on the video. "Hey, are you here to try it out?" A gentle voice suddenly came from the side. Erin turned around and saw that she was a girl who looked no older than her. She was wearing a simple gray robe, her hair was slim and a shy smile on her face. She held a thick notebook in her hand, and the cover was covered with dense runes. "Ah, yes." Erin pointed a little unhappy to chat with strangers. "So are you?" "Yes, my name is Liashingin." The girl smiled and stretched out her hand. "I came from a small place and heard it was difficult to try, so it was a bit tight." "Where are you?" Irene's style. Irene shook her hand, feeling the other person's palm was warm and powerful, and felt inexplicably relieved. "I came from the country, and I had no preparations to touch the air." "Don't say that, those who can come here have some skills." Lia blinked and said in a low voice, "I heard that this trial was different from previous years. Something seemed to have happened in the guild, and the trial would be even more difficult. Have you heard any sound?" Erin slammed her head. She didn't have any channels to hear anything. But Leah's words made her heart skip a beat. The trial was already in danger, so what could it be difficult? Just as I was about to ask a few more words, a deep sound suddenly echoed, and the crowd on the square suddenly calmed down, and everyone's eyes turned to the direction of the cursed tower. The door of the tower opened slowly, and a tall figure in a long black robe walked out. He wore a pointed top hat, which covered half of his face, but the air seemed to be able to make people breathless. Erin looked away, only to think her heart beat faster. The magic waves radiated on this person were stronger than all the magicians she had seen combined. "Welcome, young magicians from all over the world of Fuyin." The man's voice was low and cold, as if it was deep from his throat, and it was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. "I am the chief commentator of the Magicians Guild, Carlos Greystring. Today, you will have the opportunity to participate in the final trial of the Tower of Spells, but I want to remind you that this is not a game, nor is it a glorious competition. This is a battle of life and death. Once you enter the tower, your destiny will no longer be controlled by yourself." Carlos paused for a moment, his eyes slid past the crowd, and Erin felt that his vision seemed to be on her for a moment. Although it was only a blink of an eye, the chill made her sweat burst out from behind. "The rules for the trial are simple," Carlos continued. "The Tower of the Slogan has 9 levels, each of which is an independent challenge. You need to unfold the mysteries through sings, fight the guardians, and even face your heart. Only those who reach the top of the tower can become members of the guild. But remember that the magic inside the tower is not subject to any rules. Your spells may fail, may backfire, and may even leave you lost in the tower forever." There was a lot of private words on the floor. Some people's faces turned pale and some people held the staff tightly. Erin couldn't help swallowing. Carlos heard this, as if he was deliberately scaring people, but she always felt that every word this person said was true. "Of course, if you regret it now, you still have time to leave." Carlos sneered, with a little ridicule in his voice, "but once you step into the tower, you won't go back. Now, make a choice." As the voice fell, the crowd on the field began to stir. A few young magicians hesitated for a moment, turned away, and felt unwilling to write on their faces. But more people still chose to stay, including Erin. She knew that she had no way out and she had to go to the same place no matter how dangerous this experiment was. Lia stood beside her and said in a low voice, "It seems we have to work hard together. I am good at long defense spells. If you need it, I can help you with it. Where are you?" Erin smiled bitterly. In fact, I don't really have the control of my singing, and I may not be able to help me." "It's okay, and it's not something that everyone can pass." Lia patted her on the shoulder. "We help each other and maybe we can go further." Erin clicked a little, and her heart warmed up. She didn't expect that she would meet someone like Lia just when she got here. However, she also knew that trying to do things cannot be done by friendship. Her eyes fell on the man in a long robe again, and he was looking at her and Liao with a contemptuous look, with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. "Humph, those who came down from the country want to try it out? Don't laugh so hard." The man muttered in a low voice, not loud, but it was enough for Erin to hear it. She clenched her fists and said nothing, but she had already remembered this person in her heart. It seems that this trial not only has challenges in the tower, but also these competitors. She had to be careful not to be stabbed from behind. Carlos raised his hand, signaled everyone to rest, and pointed to the tower door. "Try it, now it starts. Come with me for the first batch of incoming people." Erin took a deep breath and followed the crowd toward the huge black stone door. The door is full of ancient runes, scattering an inexplicable sense of pressure. She glanced back at Leah and the other person pointed at her, as if to encourage her. Then, she walked through the door, and a cold touch came from her feet, as if she had stepped into another world. Inside the door is a dark long corridor, with faint magic light stones embedded on the walls, which can barely illuminate the road ahead. There was a sense of old smell in the air, as if no one had been here for hundreds of years. Erin heard the door behind her and heard a deep sound, and her heartbeat couldn't help but be faster. The first level of trial, the musical palace. Carlos's voice came from the front, as if it was directly diamonding into his brain. "You need to find the right path through singing. But remember, wrong singing will awaken the guardians of the mystery. I wish you good luck." As the sound fell, a circle of runes suddenly lit up in the head of the long corridor, and the ground began to vibrate, as if something was activated. Erin felt a magic wave coming towards her face, so strong that her skin numb. She subconsciously held the spell in her hand tightly, and her brain was blank. Is it already so difficult now that this is the beginning? She gritted her teeth and told herself that she would have to continue to be saved no matter what. At least, she had to prove that she was not a monster. Erin stood at the entrance of the music palace. The ground under her feet was still shaking slightly, and a low buzzing sound was filled with the air, as if something huge was awakening from afar. Leah, beside her, held her pencil tightly, and although she was wearing a tight slit on her face, her eyes were still firm. Other testers also scattered in 2 or 3 places. Some had already started humming curses in a low voice, trying to perceive the path of the mystery, and some were like Erin, standing in place, waving and not daring to act rashly. On the wall of the long corridor, the light of the runes is bright and dark, like something alive, attracting people to approach, or as if warning something. Erin lowered her head and flipped out the old spell book in her hand, and wrote sloppy notes and some musical notes that she had half understood. She knew that musical mysteries cannot be passed by merely by force, and they must be used to explain the path through correct singing. But the problem is that her sing has never been correct since then, and every time she opens her mouth, it seems like she is chasing her life. "Irene, we have to try it," Leah said in a low voice, breaking her hesitation. "I just looked at the notes. The mysteries here should be designed based on the common principle of the core of the rhythm. As long as you find the correct tune, you can open the channel. I can sing a defensive curse to help you resist possible backlash. You come and try to perceive the path of perception. What's the way you do?" Erin clicked a little, thanking Leah for her trust, but she couldn't help but worry. If her singing is out of control, it may be a disaster for Leah. She took a deep breath, pressed down the thoughts in her heart, closed her eyes, and tried to hear the sounds around her. The buzzing sound in the mist is not single, but is like a broken song, ups and downs, sometimes pointed and sometimes deep. She tried to follow the rhythm and hummed a few vocals lightly. At first, the sound was still stable, but within a few seconds, her throat seemed to be grabbed by something, and the tune suddenly rose, turning into a harsh sound. The runes on the wall suddenly lit up red light, and the ground was shaking even more, as if something was awakened. Erin panicked and kept shutting her mouth, but it was too late. "Be careful." Leah reacted quickly raised her hand and sang a low anti-blade spell. Her voice was gentle and firm, like an invisible barrier, pressing in front of 2 people. At almost the same time, a low growl came from the deep corridor, and a huge shadow walked slowly from the darkness. The thing looked like a monster made of stones and magical energy, with runes engraved on its body and agri light flashing in its eyes. It's the guardian of the palace. Leah bit her teeth, trembling with a shiver in her voice. Irene, don't stop, keep singing. We have to find our way, otherwise this guy will keep chasing us. Erin clicked and forced herself to calm down. She knew that now was not a time to be afraid. If she couldn't even pass the first level, what would she ask about to prove herself? She closed her eyes again, trying to ignore the guardian's approaching pace and focus on the rhythm of the mystery. This time, she didn't rush to open her mouth, but first recited the lyrics in her heart and tried to find the feeling of sharing the bird with the mystery. Slowly, she heard a faint but clear tune, like a fine line hidden behind the buzzing sound. She grabbed the tune and opened her mouth carefully, her voice so low that she could hardly hear it. Unexpectedly, this time her singing did not get out of control, but instead blended with the music of the mystery. Runes on the wall gradually turned blue, and a hidden passage appeared in front of them. It's done! Leah relaxed her voice, but the guard was close to her. It raised its huge stone fist and slammed it hard at the two people. Leah's defensive curse barely suppressed the first shot, but her face turned pale a little, and it seemed that it could not last long. Go away! Erin pulled Leah and rushed towards the passage. The guardian's roar returned behind him, his footsteps getting closer and closer, but the entrance to the passage was already close in front of him. The two people almost rolled in, and the runes of the passage lit up the moment they entered, and then a light curtain sealed the entrance, blocking the guardian's pursuit. Erin sat on the ground, gasping for breath, her heart beating as if she was about to jump out. Leah wasn't much better, she was sweating all over her head, but she still smiled reluctantly. Look, we cooperate well. Although your singing is a bit scary, it really works. Erin smiled bitterly and slammed her head. I almost messed up again. If it weren't for you, I would have probably been smashed by the stone monster. Don't say that, the trial just started, we have to adapt slowly. Leah patted her shoulder, stood up and looked around. This passage should be the road to the next level, but it looks quite long, and there may be other traps. We have to be careful. The light in the passage is dimmer than in the long corridor. There are occasionally several runes flashing on the wall, as if guiding the direction or warning something. Erin followed Leah forward, unable to help but recall her singing just now. At that moment, she really felt a certain kind of chew, like the rhythm of the mystery blended with her voice. The feeling was wonderful, but it was also dangerous because she knew that her power might be out of control at any time. Not long after they left, the two heard a humorous sound coming from the front, as if someone was arguing. Erin and Leah looked at each other, approached carefully, hiding behind a corner and listening to each other. The owner of the sound was the man wearing a long robe on the square before, Victor Dark Beast. There were two trialists standing beside him, looking like his followers. Those two towns have passed the first level, it's really a waste of time. Victor's voice was filled with slander. But it's okay, there are 8 levels next, and there are always opportunities to get them out. Especially the one named Erin, who heard her singing was a bit weird and might be put on the stage. Are you saying, use her? A follower asked in a low voice. Of course. Victor sneered, trial is not a fair game. Whoever can reach the end will win the house. If there is something special about that girl's singing, we will let her open the road and kick her out after she is used up. Erin's heart sank when she heard it, and her fists were clenched unconsciously. She knew that this guy was not a good thing, and he was planning to start from the beginning. Leah pulled her sleeve lightly, signaling her not to move, and then said in a short voice, let's avoid them first and avoid head-on conflicts. The road here is still long, so there's always a chance to let him suffer. Erin clicked, pressed down on the fire in her heart, and followed Leah to turn on the victors group. The passage became narrower and narrower, and the air became increasingly grim, as if he had entered some kind of underground mist. Along the way, they encountered several small-scale music traps. Fortunately, they had Leah's curse and Erin's steady singing, and they were all over the place. When they finally walked to the entrance of the second floor, a huge circular hall appeared in front of them. A golden ball of light floated in the middle of the hall, emitting soft but strong magic waves, like a guide to some kind of experiment. The walls around are filled with more complex runes, and a deep voice is hidden, making people feel distracted. What is this? Erin looked at the light ball and felt an inexplicable sense of pressure. Leah flipped through the notebook, glanced at it for a few quick glances, and then said in a low voice, "I guess this is the core of the second level of challenge, maybe some kind of musical test. Looking at these runes, we should have to sing a specific spell to activate the light ball and open the next level of the road." Special mantra? Erin felt nervous, but I have never learned any correct mantras. What if I sing it wrong? It's okay, let's try it slowly. Leah comforted, "I'll sing a basic chorus tune first. If you follow my rhythm, you shouldn't have big problems." The two stood in front of the light ball, and Leah took a deep breath and began to sing in a low voice. Her voice was gentle and steady, like a calm river, with runes around the light ball illuminating. Erin listened to her rhythm and tried to keep up, but as soon as her voice joined, the situation changed. Her chorus sing was like a stone smashing into the calm water, stirring up waves. The rune's light began to flash unsteadily, and even the ground of the temple began to shake. "Irene, stop!" Leah shouted hurriedly, but Irene could no longer stop. Her voice seemed to be attracted by some kind of force, and she became more and more accented, and her voice became higher and higher. The light ball suddenly burst out with a dazzling light, and then a series of gaps broke out on the wall of the hall, and countless black fogs emerged from it, like a smaller version of the quiet crack, and quickly rushed towards the two people. "Oh no, it's a backlash!" Leah gritted her teeth and sang a stronger anti-warning spell, but the black fogs seemed to be able to swallow the sound, and her spell was immediately released, with a huge reduction in effect. Erin watched the black fog approaching, feeling self-responsible and panic. She knew that this was her mistake again, and if she could control her singing, she would not have made things like this. Just as the black fog was about to swallow them, a cold voice suddenly echoed, "It's over." The owner of the sound is Carlos Graystring. He appeared at the entrance of the hall sometime, and his long black robe looked particularly pressured under the dim light. His hand raised lightly and sang a low and complex mantra. The sound seemed to be directly diamonding into the black fog, tearing them apart in an instant. The silence, like slight smudges, seemed to be crushed by some invisible force, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Erin and Leah were both stunned. Carlos walked over slowly, his eyes swept over the two of them coldly, and finally stopped on Erin. The look seemed to be able to see through her soul, which made her take a step back. "Your singing is indeed not simple." Carlos's voice was low, with an unknown smile. "I haven't seen it in many years. Unfortunately, you can't even get the most basic control. If this continues, it will only harm yourself and others." Erin bit her lips tightly, and she didn't say anything. She knew Carlos was right, but she still felt dissatisfied in her heart. She didn't want to be seen as a dangerous slut, but in front of her eyes, her singing was indeed out of control again and again. "Chief commentator, Leah wanted to explain, but Carlos raised her hand and slammed her. "Try to continue," he said coldly, "but I warn you, especially you, Erin's style, that the Tower of Spell is not a real experiment for you. If you cause such a backlash, I don't mind throwing you out of the tower." After saying that, Carlos turned away, leaving Erin and Leah standing there. The atmosphere was so heavy that it made people breathless. Erin looked down at her hand. Her palm still had the burning feeling of singing just now, and her heart was filled with scent. She knew that Carlos' attention to her was not a good thing, and the man looked at her like he was staring at a tool, not a living person. "Don't think too much," Leah said lightly, and the test picture broke the silence. "Although he said it hard, he at least didn't kick us out to show that you still have a chance. Let's continue to try. I'll guide you more carefully this time." Erin was slightly lit, but the pressure in her heart was not less. She knew that every layer of the trial would be harder than the previous one, and her singing could become a regular blowout at any time. She had to find a way to control it, otherwise she wouldn't be able to save her life through the trial. The runes around the light ball have returned to peace, but the air in the hall is still suppressed. Erin and Leah stood in front of the light ball again. This time they were more cautious. Leah's singing played more slowly, while Erin suppressed her voice as much as possible and made only the faintest tune. Slowly, the room lit up again. This time there was no backlash. The light ball emitted a crisp sound, and then a golden door appeared on the other side of the hall. "It's done!" Leah relaxed her voice and finally smiled on her face. "Look, we can do it. Let's go to the next level." Erin followed her toward the door of light, but she was not much joy in her heart. She knew that this was just the beginning of the trial, and the subsequent challenges would only be more dangerous. Carlos's sentence, "I haven't seen it in many years," has been reminiscing in her brain, making her feel that behind her power, there are some secrets that she still cannot touch. Behind the door was a deeper passage, and the runes on the walls were radiating cold light, like countless eyes, calmly watching their progress. Erin tightened the curse and told herself that she had to go on anyway. The channels full of hidden sounds came, as if some new challenge was waiting for them. Erin took a deep breath and was ready to welcome everything that followed. Erin and Leah passed through the door, their feet fell on the cold stone slabs of the passage, and a biting chill came over. The passage is narrower than any previous layer. The runes on the wall emit dark blue light, like flower patterns condensed by frost. There are rustic repetitions in the air, and the content cannot be heard clearly, which makes people's skin numb. Erin tightened the broken cloak on her body, and felt her heart beating faster and faster, as if she had expected something bad. "This place doesn't feel very agitated," Leah said softly, with a slight anxiety in her voice. The notes in her hand had been broken, and the runes and mantras recorded on it were a little blurred. "I heard that the higher the tower of mantras, the closer the test will be to the essence of the core of the rhythm, which may directly affect our minds. Do you think there is a little bit of it?" Erin clicked a little, and she really felt something was moving in her brain, like someone humming a strange song in her ear. She slammed her head, tried to throw the feeling away, and then said in a low voice, "No matter what, we have to go forward. The guy Carlos said right, this tower is not a place to slowly rub." The two of them walked along the passage, their feet reverberating in the narrow space, looking particularly lonely. Not long after I walked, the passage suddenly opened and a huge circular hall appeared in front of me. A group of black energy floated in the center of the hall, like a smaller version of the quiet crack. The air around it was distorted, emitting a suffocating feeling of pressure. The walls of the hall are filled with dense runes. These runes do not flash in a regular manner as before, but are like a heartbeat, which is fast and slow, and has a strange vitality. "Is this the 9th level?" Leah's voice was a little trembling. She flipped her pen note, glanced quickly, and then said with a brow, "No, according to the record, the 9th level should be the trial site on the top of the tower. Why would there be such a thing? This black energy is like a silence crack, but it is not exactly the same." Erin didn't say anything, her vision was locked tightly on the black energy group. Her straightforwardness told her that this thing had some connection with her co-ed singing, because when she got closer, a singing movement emerged from her throat, as if that group of energy was summoning her. She clenched her teeth and pressed the urge toward her head, and said to Leah, "We have to be careful, this place may not be an ordinary trial. I feel it is waiting for me." Leah pointed her head, held the staff in her hand tightly, and began to hum a defensive spell with a low voice. Her voice was gentle and stable, as if she was trying to meet the invisible pressure in the hall. But as soon as her spell was released, she was swallowed by a sudden silence, and the sound seemed to be cut by something, and even a complete musical section could not be released. "What's going on?" Leah covered her throat in panic and tried to sing again, but the result was still the same. Her face turned pale in an instant, and her eyes were filled with fear. "My singing has failed. This is impossible." Erin's heart sank, and she immediately tried to open her mouth and hum the simplest tune, but her voice was also swallowed up, as if she was strangled by an invisible hand. Their magic completely lost its effect in this hall. The black energy seemed to detect their powerlessness, and it swelled up like a huge mouth approaching the two of them. "Run!" Erin grabbed Leah and turned around and rushed towards the direction of the passage. But they ran a few steps, and the entrance to the hall was suddenly blocked by a layer of black fog, like a barrier of silent cracks, completely blocking the retreat. The black energy body is getting faster and faster, and the low voices in the air are getting more and more agitated, like countless people screaming in their ears, making people feel pain. "Irene, we have no way." Leah's voice was crying. She leaned against the wall, her eyes filled with hope. "This thing, is the silence crack? It is going to swallow us, just like swallowing those missing magicians." Erin bit her lips tightly and her brain flew quickly. She knew that Leah said it was right, and that it was indeed related to the silence crack, but it was not exactly the same because she could feel that it was not simply swallowing the sound, but like searching for something. She suddenly remembered what Carlos said before. Her sings may be the key to the imbalance of the rhythmic core, or it may be a greater disaster-prone tweak. "Leah, you listen." Erin turned his head, his lingerie must have been a little surprised. "I have to try to use my sings to break the influence of this. Do you help me get some time, do you?" "You're crazy." Leah's eyes widened. "Your singing is not controlled at all, and it has repeatedly caused greater backlash. We will all be done. And the silence power here is so strong that you can't even sound, so how can you sing?" "I don't know, but I have to try it." Erin took a deep breath, with a stubborn look in her eyes. "If this thing really hits me, I have to face it. Otherwise, neither of us can get out of this tower." Leah looked at her, hesitated for a moment, and finally got a little head. She bit her teeth and forced herself to calm down. Then she took out a small stone with runes engraved from her and said in a low voice, "This is the talisman passed down from my family. It can resist the invasion of the silence power in a short time. I don't know how long it will last, but at least it will make you sing a few sings. Erin, don't let me waste this thing." Erin took the talisman and felt a warm force coming from the stone, as if it was temporarily dissipating the quiet pressure around her. She held the tight talisman, closed her eyes, and tried to recall the common bird she felt in the trial. The feeling was very subtle, like there was an invisible line between her voice and the core of her rhythm. As long as she grasped that line, she could break through the silent restraint. The black energy body was approaching a few steps away, and the low voice in the air was almost tearing her eardrums. Leah stood in front of her, trembling with her hands supporting the last defensive zone, but the zone was shaking with the power of silence and might collapse at any time. Erin knew that there was not much time left. She took a deep breath, held the talisman, and finally opened her mouth. The sound was very weak at first, as if it was blowing deep from her throat, but as the power of the talisman penetrated into her body, the tune gradually became clear. Her chorus sings resounded again. This time it was not out of control as before, but like a stream of streams, gathering into a river, fighting against the lowly vocals in the hall. The black energy body seemed to feel the threat, and it expanded faster, and even split a few black touchmen and rushed towards Erin. Leah gritted her teeth and slapped her in front of her, but her boundary was finally overwhelmed and broken into light spots. She was shocked and fell heavily on the wall, making a sound. "Leah!" Erin felt ache, but she knew that she couldn't stop now. Her singing became more and more exciting, with the tuning layer added, as if countless sounds were gathered in her body. Her throat was burned by fire, and it was so painful that it was almost cracking, but she still gritted her teeth and held on. Finally, she felt a familiar wave. It was the movement of the core of the rhythm, like a heart hidden deep in the black energy body. Finished. Erin's heart was shocked. She concentrated all her will and focused the power of her singing on the wave. Her voice seemed to turn into a sharp blade, directly piercing the outer shell of the black energy body, touching its core. At that moment, the low voice in the hall suddenly turned into a sharp wail, and the black energy body shook violently, then shattered like glass, turning into countless black fogs, dissipating in the air. Jingma's urgency disappeared in an instant, and Erin sat on the ground, gasping for breath, and her throat felt as if it was torn apart. Her visual line was blurry, but she still crawled toward Leah and patted her face lightly. "Hey, Leah, you're fine, are you? Wake up." Leah opened her eyes smoothly, her face as white as paper, but she still smiled reluctantly. Look. I just said you can do it. Ahem, that sound just now is not as simple as a person can sing. Erin relaxed her voice and sat up, and the two of them rested on the wall for a while. The runes in the hall gradually returned to peace, and the black energy in the center had disappeared completely, and replaced by a light door leading to the top of the tower. The door of light emits a soft golden light, like the final call of the test. We are at the end. Leah said in a low voice, with a burst of fatigue in her voice, but more of a relief. Eileen, no matter what is next, I will face you. Erin clicked a little, and she didn't feel much joy in her heart. She knew that behind this door, there might be the ultimate attempt, Carlos said, or the truth about her life experience. She held the talisman in her hand tightly, helped Leah stand up, and the two walked towards the door of light together. The moment I passed through the door, the dazzling light made Erin's eyes subconsciously close. When she opened her eyes again, she found that she was standing on a huge open-air platform, surrounded by an endless sea of clouds. The stone slabs under her feet were full of ancient runes, scattering strong magic waves. This is the top layer of the Tower of the Mantra, the real place of the core of music. In the center of the platform, Carlos' gray strings stood quietly, and his black robe was playing the keys in the wind. Behind him, a huge golden ball of light floated, and countless streaming notes could be seen inside, like the sound source of the entire world. Carlos turned over, his eyes swept over Erin and Leah coldly, and a meaningful smile came out from the corner of his mouth. I didn't expect you to really get to this point. His voice was low, with a slight praise, but more of a cold review. It's especially you, Erin's style, your vocals didn't disappoint me. Erin stood firmly with her eyebrows, holding Leah and looking at him vigilantly. You have known my strength for a long time, right? You have been waiting for me to come here. What do you want to fuck? Carlos smiled lightly, raised his hand slowly, and a complicated rune appeared in his palm. Your power is not born, but created by the guild. Many years ago, we tried to repair the imbalance of the core of the rhythm, creating a container that can directly share it with, that is you. But the experiment failed, and you were abandoned in a remote village, becoming an unknown abandon. Erin's heart was shocked, as if she was hit by a heavy blow. She always knew that her singing was abnormal, but she never thought that she was actually an artificial existence. She bit her lips tightly, her voice trembling slightly. So what? Are you telling me these now to let me continue to be your tool? No. Carlos's eyes became even colder. I tell you this because you have no choice. The imbalance of the core of the rhythm has reached the point of view, and the silence rift is swallowing up the entire continent. The only solution is to use your sings to wake up the lost sound and seal the rift. But the price is your life. When Leah heard this, she clenched Erin's hand and looked at Carlos angrily. You bastard. She is not your pawn, why should she sacrifice her? Carlos looked at her coldly, ignoring her anger, but continued to say to Erin, choose in your hands, Erin. Should I sacrifice myself, save the mainland, or refuse, and let everything go to ruin? Erin lowered her head and was silent for a moment, and her brain became a group. She didn't want to die, but she didn't want to watch the silence rift swallow everything. She remembered the destruction of the village, the trialists she met along the way, and the trust and company of Leah. Finally, she raised her head, and there was a sense of desperation in her eyes. I won't follow your script. Her voice was low and firm. If my sings can awaken the sound of loss, I will speak it in my own way. I will not sacrifice for your plan, nor will this be destroyed. Carlos's eyes flashed with surprise, but it immediately turned into a sneer. Naughty, do you think you can resist fate? Well, let me see what your will can do. He raised his hand and sang a low and complex taboo spell. The runes on the platform lit up instantly, as if turning the entire tower into a huge magical aura. The golden light ball began to vibrate violently, and the notes inside seemed to have been torn apart, making a harsh sound. Erin felt a strong pressure coming towards her, as if the core of the rhythm itself was repelling her. Irene, be careful. Leah gritted her teeth and stood in front of her, trying to use the final defensive spell to resist, but her power was gone, and the boundary was shattered as soon as it was formed. Carlos's spell was like an invisible sharp blade, stabbing directly at Erin, trying to successfully lead her sing of the sing. Erin bit her teeth tightly, closed her eyes, and tried to establish a connection with the core of the rhythm. This time, she no longer suppressed her power, but let it be completely released. Her voice sounded like a thunderbolt in the rain, fighting against Carlos's spell head-on. The two forces collided on the platform, the air was torn apart, and the clouds stormed, as if the end of the world was about to come. Her throat hurt like she was torn, and her mind became blurry, but she still gritted her teeth and held on. She felt that a note at the depth of the core of the rhythm was touched, which was the essence of the lost sound, carrying endless power, but also carrying the danger of destruction. She used her final will to incorporate her emotions and beliefs into her singing and tried to redefine this mantra. "Stop! You'll destroy everything." Carlos finally panicked in his voice. He tried to stop Erin, but her singing could not be stopped. The sound of loss was awakened and turned into a golden column of light, breaking through the top of the tower and piercing the sky. At that moment, the entire notes could be heard, like the sorrow of the world, or like a new life. The quiet cleft began to collapse under the sound, as if it was crushed by some invisible force. The imbalance of the core of the rhythm is temporarily repaired, and the pressure on the top of the tower disappears instantly. Erin fell to the ground, her consciousness almost completely lost, but she still heard Carlos growling angry, You actually did it, but this is just the beginning." Carlos' figure gradually became blurred, as if he was pulled away by some force and disappeared on the platform. Leah crawled to Erin's body, and the water couldn't stop flowing down. "You fool, you almost lost your life." Erin smiled reluctantly, her voice so weak that she could hardly hear. "It's okay, at least, we're still alive." The golden light ball on the platform calmed down and the rune's light became softer. Erin knew that she had changed the fate of the lost voice in her own. Although she was not able to become a formal member of the Magician Guild, she broke the guild's decay in her own way and made the Tower of Spells a new place of hope. A few days later, Erin and Leah stood on the turret under the tower, ready to leave this remembranced place. Her throat still hurts, but her heart is much more relaxed. She looked at the horizon far away and said in a low voice, "Leah, I have to find the true roots of the core of the rhythm. I feel that it's not over yet." Leah pointed and shook her hand tightly. "Then I'll go with you too. No matter what is ahead, let's face it together." The two smiled at each other and turned around and walked away. The wind blew across the square, bringing a fresh breath, like the mainland was in a whisper, waiting for their next adventure.